Here we are at the model of the Bolean and Larne railway number 4. Number 5. And the next thing to do is to put in a dummy, an additional dummy, so those that I showed before, and this goes in at the 0 position. We're going to call it BR main, that's what I call it anyway, and I'm going to position it at 0, 0, 0. Okay, and immediately having done that, I shall put in an attachment point, and I shall tell it a constant screen size and center marker axis, and I call that as A for attachment point main. And the reasons for this will become clear 0, 0, 0 as we proceed. That is actually going to be, the attachment point is going to be where the is going to be on the model of the locomotive body itself, and it's going to be where the dummy BR main will attach itself. So that's where the bogie is going to attach itself to the loco. Don't worry that it's down lower down, it doesn't appear in any of the in the model itself. So now the main thing that I'm going to do is look at making the cylinders. So for this I'm going to be using the front, and I've also got information about the cylinders, but at the moment all I want to do is to create the look of the cylinders. So if we go up to texture correction, and where it says back, it's the front that we're going to be doing, and the only one I want to have being displayed is this diagram at the moment. And so it's going to here, and essentially the cylinder is just that, it's a cylinder. So let's, from our standard primitives, make a cylinder. I'm just guessing there. What I need to do is to pull this back, it's on the x-axis, no, it's on the other, it's on the y-axis. Pull it back, there we are, so that it's not obscuring the cylinder. And there's the cylinder that I've got, and I've got it with, let's have a look, let's select the cylinder, not the plane, there it is, got 18 sides, that should be okay. We don't need all those height segments, so that just quintuples the number of polys, and at the moment it's a radius of 1 foot, 1 inch and a 1.5, so we'll set that to, let's have a go at a radius of 10 inches. Let's have a look and see what we're doing. Yes, that looks about right. And let's also unhide plane number 1, which is the side here, and let's bring that into play here. And make sure the texture correction's on, and bring it over. I think that the line here is the line that I'm using there. And there's obviously a ring and nuts going around the ring there, and the rest is obscured, partly obscured by this, the front buffer beam. So let's take the cylinder back a bit. You'll notice I haven't inclined it yet, I don't intend to for some time. And I'll just drop it down a little bit so as to bring it interline with this one. And I'm going to estimate the length, which at the moment is just an arbitrary amount. It's about 2 foot, isn't it? 2'3", I think. Yeah, that's okay. And now I'm going to add detail. What I could do is add a texture to the cylinder to represent these fittings, but I think instead what I want is to give this some mesh detail. So I actually think that's probably a little bit, that's about right, I think, when it comes to a final job. So now I need to create these rings, so I'm going to go into standard primitives, make a cube, reduce all the height segments, I don't need that. Just remind myself that this is a radius of 10 inches, so the outer radius is going to be 10, so we're leaving in a radius at 8 at the moment, and the outer radius at 10. And that's still too, that's going to need to be a bit thicker than that. Let's have a look. And off to one side, yes, it needs to be much, it's only about half, so we need to take that down maybe to a radius of 6. Too much. That's about right. And we need a length, height here in this case, of about an inch. You don't need all that depth. So there it is. And it should be enough just to provide the look. And we're going to put 2 of these in, so let's immediately center them up. This one, and take this. I found it's worth, as it were, spending the polys on the cylinder and motion detail, because it results in a much more detailed look. It looks much more interesting to the viewer to see the detail of the cylinder system. Now also what we have here is quite a sort of a complex wraparound almost of this cylinder. We'll see that in a moment. Let's just take a clone of this one and we'll move it to the other end. Let's go into Wireframe to make sure it's aligned correctly. Right in, there we are. Now I know I've got various planes, polygons, which I've got to delete from the inner face of this tube. But what I also need to do is to create the effect of a some sort of casting which comes up and round and down here. And as it were, the cylinder itself is sitting inside that, so I'm going to keep this as it is at the moment. I'm going to take a clone and I'm going to reduce it down to a radius, smaller radius of, I think, about 9.5. and I'm going to change its colour so I can distinguish it from this one in pink. And now what I'm going to do is use a compound primitive. These are standard primitives. I'm going to use a compound primitive, but I'm going to create something which is going to carve out a hollow from this solid cylinder. And the way I intend to do that is to create a rectangle, and I'm then going to increase the corner radius of that rectangle until it looks a bit like the corner of this section of the cylinder. Move that up a bit and also position it, center it. So what I'm aiming to be left with is a cylindrical outline with a hollow cut right through it, and then this will sit inside that. So this is quite a complex cylinder. Normally they're pretty straightforward, much more straightforward than this, but there you go. I'm showing you how I'm doing this as I do it, so I'm not going to hide any aspects, and I'm going to extrude this. I'll extrude it by about 3 feet. Doesn't matter how long, it's just it's going to carve out. Hopefully this is going to work. I sometimes have problems with these compounds. So I'm going to be left with, if I remove everything with this, I'm going to be left with that strange shape there, which this then sits inside. So let's have a go at that. I'm going to turn this into a poly, and I'm going to turn this one into a poly as well, and then I'm going to come up to here and come down to compound objects, and I'm going to click on Bolean, and then what it allows you to do is this now becomes operand A. You can then pick operand B, which is then deducted from operand A, like that. Except we've got a strange, sometimes get this with Gmax, you get a strange effect there. It's not quite as clean as it should be, but you can see what I'm trying to do. So I'm not happy with that at all. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo it, and I'm not going to use it as a compound object. Instead what I'm going to do is I do have a chamfered box, which is a standard primitive in the full version of Max 3D Max, but isn't available for Gmax. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to, I think I want merge, and I need to go to trains, projects and models, and I think I have a chamfered box down here somewhere. No, so it's import, not merge, it's import, and I'm going to do the same thing, go to models. There we are, I've got a chamfered box, and I'm going to pick that one up and I'm going to merge it. Yes, it doesn't matter really. Let's have a look at our animation. Is it going to change it? And so you can see this is my chamfered box. It's one I made in Studio Max, and I'm going to use this to carve out what I've got here. So first of all I'm going to center it. Right, center X, Y, Z, and now it doesn't really matter how much I've got here because I'm going to be shrinking it down. shrink it in all sorts of ways. So we don't want that. So there's just X. That's what we want. That's not what we want. What we want is something a bit different than that. Let's move those together. And then let's bring these in. Yeah, you can see I'm just recreating that same shape. And I'm going to move those down, out the way. So it's this shape, but also not the end curves that I'm going to use. I'm going to try and see if this works better on the Boolean texture. So let's just center that. Make sure it's centered over our piston. We don't want it that centered. That's okay. Right, now we'll have another go. May get the same result. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I have this available as a second copy, just in case I need to use it again in some way. Let's have a go. So there's our cylinder. We're going to go up to compound objects, Boolean, and we're going to pick operand B, inherited from you, yes. Note we've still got this rather bizarre cropping distortion here, so it's not very good at all. Okay, so after experimenting, I'm back with the solution, and that means I have to give up some of the fine detail that I wanted, but nevertheless I'm going to make a box, just a standard primitive box. The problem is being created by trying to put a curve in this, in these like curved corners on the box, cutting through the cylinder. Creates all sorts of problems for Gmax. So I'm just going to make an ordinary box and make sure it's centered on my cylinder. X, Y, not Y, Z. There we go. And now I'm just going to take my cylinder, go over to compound objects, a Boolean, pick operand B, and chop it out like that. So what I'm left with is this cylinder. If we look here, it's now a Boolean. Now I would immediately convert that to a editable poly, and what I've foregone is a curve there in each corner, but I'm prepared to live with that because the alternative is next to impossible for Gmax, so I can't give you an answer to that. So there's, if I put the cylinder inside, you can see I can now texture these differently, but what I am going to do is I'm going to take some of the length out of this cylinder because I don't want it showing here, and that means that's probably a bit too much. All I need to do is to adjust it so that the I keep referring to the photograph because I've got that by the side of me. Doesn't matter if it overlaps slightly there, but also I think that there needs to be a stronger, smaller diameter for this, so as to make that a much more noticeable. There we are, much more noticeable inset, because having gone through all the process of making this thing, I wanted it to be seen, so to show off the work that I've done. So I'm now going to convert that to a poly. Make sure this is a poly. This is a tube, so I'm going to convert that to a poly now, and this one to a poly. I don't need that, and I'm going to save this straight away. Save. I've got a problem there because I think what I did was, yeah, so let's just go back a bit so that these are, I'm not sure if I can step back, convert them back to tubes, no. So here we are, I'm just making jobs for myself, because if we were to look at the front of it, then we can see that very stupidly what I've done is I've made the ring here, that blue part here, with a different number of sides to this. Or it may be the same actually. So what I should do actually is, I think what I need to do is to rotate that. I'm on sort of 5 degrees at a time. I think if I rotate this, there we are, it'll, and one at the back, just rotate it 10 degrees is enough. There we are, it all aligns, so that when we look at it now, it all looks fine. Of course, what I must do straight away is to XREF it, and I'll then collapse it again, and I shall use the old alignment and do the same on the other end. XREF, invert to poly, and center to object. There we are. So after all that faffing about, we've now got something that's beginning to look a bit like the cylinder. I know I've got to angle it up to get it in that position, but I've still got a few more things I want to do, and the first thing I'm going to do is to eliminate as many polygons as I can. I'm going to work with this in Wireframe, so I'm going to take away the inside polys of this ring, which is hidden, and so these now go. Delete all of those, and having done that one, I shall now clone it, rotate it 180 degrees, and then position it where this one is. Okay, and hide it, and I'll give it a different colour, that's a quicker way, and then make sure I pick up the blue one that's underneath. There it is, and delete it. And for this yellow cylinder, which is inside the larger cylinder which I did, I can also lose the end polys, that one there, and this one at this end. Now it doesn't make much difference to the look of it, but it won't make any difference to the look of the cylinder. It still looks exactly as it did before, except that we're now using a few fewer polys. Now I'm going to texture this so as to, and I'm going to use my, I don't know what that one is, I made by mistake. I'm going to use frames, my frames again. If I keep using the same material, I can really cut down the size of the overall finished file, and I'm just going to make this into a series of shape. I'm just using this on a series of shapes here. And we'll use none of this is shiny, so I can just use the same. Now on this one, what I want to do is just see some more. I can remove the polys from inside that curve. Just realise. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to shrink it down a bit more and make all of the surfaces this colour at the moment, but then I'm going to make the outer surfaces this colour. And the way I do that is I'm going to have to go into Wireframe, and then I'm going to have to select the faces that I want to select, that I need for this. So I'm going to go round, I've just got to be patient with this, selecting all of those outer faces, going to make up the look of the cylinder, and it's worth doing. And it's worth doing it now before making the other cylinder, of course. But we're not going to make another cylinder, we're just going to clone this one. So let's put it back into the middle. And where are we? Okay. Holding down the control button to pick more up to add to my current selection. And now there's some underneath. Yes, there they are. Not the top one, look. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So if I just use this button down here just to show the ones I've selected, plain R that, take it down, stick it over there, and then you use that one for the outside of the wheels. Let's have a look in smooth and highlights, and you can see there that you've got a differentiation between the face in here and the face here. If you go back to wireframe, then there are faces inside which I can lose, and certainly there are faces I can lose of the yellow cylinder. Just got to be quite clear I don't delete anything which is not obscure. So there's a few polys I can delete there. I think that one, I think there's only about 2. Let's take those away and have a look. Make sure we're okay. Yeah, we look okay there. Right, and that's from this inner cylinder. Now from this piece, there are certainly pieces I can remove from up inside. So I've got to be sort of looking at it through the yellow cylinder in wireframe. Are there? It's hard to tell, isn't it? No, I think it is. I think that's a single plane across there. If you look at it in the selector poly, yeah, I think that would be too much. I'm not really in a position to take anything out from there after all. So I was just trying to save polys, but it's not going to work. So now if we just go back to here, and now what I want to do is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we'll do about 10, 3, 4, 5, seems a bit odd. Well, we go with 10. These little nuts here that hold this on. So what I'm going to do is make those first. So I want to go up to here, and there's going to be 10 of them around there. And I'm going to make these of standard primitive. I'm going to make them of a cylinder. There's 6 faces, so let's make a cylinder. Reduce it down to 6 faces. And reduce their radius. I mean, how big is a nut? Well, that's about right, isn't it? And I'm going to take that over. Pick it up. And then let's have a look where it actually is. Well, it's nowhere to be seen because it's over here. I'm going to take that right over to here. So it's going to stand proud. It's only going to stand proud about not 4 inches. 1 inch is maybe too much, maybe 3/4 of an inch. 0 beat 0.75. There we are. And if we have a look here, let's give it a different colour so it stands out. There it is, standing out. And it's the first of the nuts there. So because I'm going to use a lot of these, what I'm going to do is collapse them. I'm going to texture it, and I shall make it a contrast texture. So this ring has got to be a slightly different texture colour to this, so as to help it stand out. So I'm going to make that, I'm going to make the sides of it this colour, and then I'm going to do the outer facing planar, the outer facing, same as this over here, and then in wireframe I'm going to come in at the back of it, collapse it all, pick it up into poly, take out the poly at the back just to save polys, and let's finish the texturing on the ring. So we'll pick up the ring, texture that, and I think what I want to do with that is give it a slightly darker texture on the sides, on the edges, and here I've got to pick up all of the segments all the way around the ring, and then over here we need it planar, and make sure you've got all the segments. It's easy to check. And then I bring that down to here, and I think that should give us a reasonable contrast. Yeah, enough of a contrast. It's a contrast both with the edge with this, and yeah, contrast there, similar to the front of the cylinder though. But the important thing is that the nut looks different, as it stands out as well. So now I'm going to do what I did before, and that's simply to clone it. Rotate the clone 180 degrees, and I'm going to XREF it and make sure it is aligned to the world, and then I shall align it here. Okay, and it's a blue colour, so the other one is green. There it is, take that out, there we are. So it's been a lot of work to produce the cylinder, but it's important to do so, and it's not finished yet, because what I want to do is up here I want to add 10. So if we have 10 of these bolts, I don't think there's 10, doesn't seem right to me. So another look at the plan. 5, 6, 7. I think there's 8. I think there's 8. So what I'm going to do is, in order to give me the position for each one of those, I'm just going to make a cylinder with 8 sides, and just position it. In fact, I can use the centering. Yeah. So there's the, let's make that something really odd colour, make it black, and we're going to delete it. It's just a guide. And I think actually if I reduce the radius a tad, just take it down a little more. 8, let's take it down to, needs to be a fair bit more. Take it down to 7, there we are. That's going to give me, don't like that as a guide, take it back to 8. Yeah, I think that's about the middle position of each nut. So here I go, I'm going to edit clone, I'm going to move it down to here, and edit clone, maybe you want to do that further out. I'm trying to keep these 2 points lined up. One of the aspects of Gmax which I would like is that you could use the old Control C, Control V to do the frame, but fortunately not. Let's have a quick look. And you can see there that although I've used, let me see how many polys on each one. It's not too many, but it's 7 on each one. But it's worth it, I think, for the effect. The only other thing you've got to do now, well, a couple of other things to do, just to tidy up, is to delete the guide, which we don't need anymore, and then using the rotate command, just twist them around a bit so they're not all, oops, no, it's going to be the same, so just so there's a bit of variation. Even that one. There we are, and now having done that, select them all. Can't stress enough, you can't overdo this. XREF and then pivots. Make sure the pivot's all okay. Okay, now you've still got them selected. So I'm going to group them. And I'm simply going to clone the group and rotate the whole group up that way. 180 degrees. You can see where this is going, and then X, move the group over there, and then that job's done. Just make sure you've got all your positions, and that one there, that needs to be tighter, and that needs to be in place there. And that then gives us our cylinder. So although it's taken a while, I think it's been worth the time and effort, and I hope it has answered any questions you might have, or at least given you an idea of how complicated some of these shapes are, but you can get around it by a bit of sort of inventive application of what's available in Gmax. And I think that's a passable representation of the cylinder there, so I'm quite happy to go with that. So my last thing to do is to group it together, and then I shall move on to getting it into position, and then making the piston rods and the connecting rod, and that will be in the next video. So there we are. Let me save this. And to remind you while I'm doing that, please subscribe to my videos. Their subscription is completely free. There is no commitment whatsoever, and it encourages me to carry on doing this, showing you my construction of this Bay of Peacock. They actually gave it a name, the crews who drove it. They called it the Bruiser, because it was one of the most powerful of the little narrow gauge engines that ran between Ballymena and Larne. So please leave a comment, please give me a thumbs up if you feel you want to, and look out for the next one.